Welcome again to the time with Professor Emeritus Stephen Adei. We are still on the productivity paradigm. And today, I want to look at the things that mitigate against people, companies, nations adopting the productivity paradigm to their head. So my title today is Anti-Productivity Mindset. In other words, things that go against people adopting the productivity mindset. Those who have been following me during the last 4 sessions have argued that the progress of individuals, companies, and nations, irrespective of their political ideology, depends largely on their mindset. Those who have productivity mindset developed. Those who don't suffer. The productivity mindset, simply put, is that the wealth of nations do not come by loot and share, but of the elite and politicians, or by galamsey, which makes some few people benefit, but the majority suffer, so that the net result is negative so far as the whole country is concerned, because it impoverishes the masses, or by connection, or by patrimony, by belonging to this party or that party, by even some irrationalities like Sakawa, gambling, and 419. The productivity paradigm refers to a mindset or a worldview or a frame of organizing our individual, corporate, and national life on the basis that our material well-being eventually is determined by our productivity. In other words, prosperity for all comes as a result of high quality of production of goods and services, out of efficiency, hard work, discipline, savings, and investment. In other words, at the end of the day, there's no free lunch. I then proceeded to show that the productivity paradigm is well supported, first by the Bible. God created us to be fruitful and to multiply. And this didn't mean that having children, meaning having dominion over nature and out of them bringing out material productivity or production also. It's also backed by economics, because that's the fundamental issue of economics, organizing factors of production to produce efficiently and then distributing it among those who demand the output. I also showed that the productivity paradigm is supported by economic history. That is what led Europe to develop, America to develop, all the newly industrialized countries, and of late, China and many of the BRICS. And that affirms the productivity paradigm. Even though this is not an economic class, I took some time, as simply as possible, to say that 3 of the great minds when it comes to economics and related discipline underscore the importance of the productivity paradigm. I talked about Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations. I looked at the economic history seen in the eyes of Max Weber, who, in his book, The Protestant Ethic and the Rise of Capitalism, shows that Europe's success and being the first industrialized continent was due to the fact that the Protestants preach productivity, hard work, savings, investment, frugality, and the rest. And as the Swiss say, God gave them only mountains and lakes and John Calvin, who was a leader in the Protestant Reformed doctrine, which emphasized the Protestant ethic. David Landes also, in his The Wealth and Poverty of Nations, more or less comes to the same conclusion. Even Karl Marx, even though many people see him in a different light, actually did not oppose the productivity paradigm, except that he was saying that labor is only the productive element and that everybody else, the bourgeoisie and the compradors, are just parasites. Of course, he was wrong in that regard. And later on, Deng Xiaoping of China had to set him aright and saying that even within the communist system, if they don't adopt the productivity paradigm, they cannot materially progress. And that was the beginning of the Chinese miracle under his leadership. Now, my question is, which is going to be my focus today, why is this mindset not predominant in Ghana and among our people? What is behind the fact that whether it is NDC or an MPP, most Ghanaians think that the way to wealth is loot and share, or ensure that they have some connection and some patrimonial relationship, so that it is not that we are taking advantage to produce wealth, goods and services, and then of course share it among us equitably. That's where the trade union will have a case. We live in a nation when there's a change in government, one half of Ghanaians say, they are not talking about productivity, because if you have the productivity mindset, you prosper. NDC or NPP, of course, their policies will make it easier or harder. Government policies matter. But at the end of the day, if you don't have the productivity paradigm, as we will say in my village, you will cry to the end. Let me therefore do something before the following weeks. I try to actualize and teach how the productivity paradigm will help individuals, then companies, then the nation to move forward and create wealth and material prosperity for our people. But today, I want to address the opposite. Why is it that in Ghana, this mindset is not gripping all of us? I lived in America for about 6.5 years, working with the United Nations. And even the downtrodden American has what they call the American dream, that one day he will work, earn enough to marry, raise children, live in the suburban area, have a car or two in the garage. And that mindset is missing among our people. I am going to talk about 10 issues which we must overcome. I'm not one of those people who say that, I was born the same. This is colonialism. No, we must overcome them. Other people have been in the same situation and through their leadership have changed their mindset. But let me just highlight the things we should knock them out of our thinking and move forward. And since they are 10, I'm going to be very quick and sparse, just because I just wanted to highlight them before I go to the opposite side, the positive side, whereby we must follow certain principles to create wealth for ourselves. The first, of course, has to do with our colonial heritage. When the government was actually exploitative, and actually, if you undermine the government, you are seen as a hero. And therefore, we got this Abanjuma mentality, which has carried us to today, and to our head. No, the colonial heritage is true. And it meant that all the surplus were extracted for the metropolis. In other words, Ghana worked literally for London and Abidjan, Ivory Coast for Paris. So it had this, but we are 65 going to 66 years. We cannot continue to be dogged by this colonial mentality. And other countries were also colonized, maybe to a different degree, but they were colonized. Latin America was colonized, Asia was colonized, Malaysia, Singapore, and other things were colonies. But a time came, they decided that they were going to meet them food for food, boot for boot. And in fact now, the world depends on South Korea for all the most of its ships and a lot of the electronics. It's not going to be something we should live forever. And we should tell our people and teach our children in school that we are going to make it through the productivity paradigm. There's also the downside of our extended family. There are many people who think that they think that when one member of the family is prosperous, all the rest become vampires and therefore suck him to their death. In fact, we have a situation whereby when you hold a public office, as many are now getting public offices in the NDC, of course, replacing those of NPP, immediately your families are looking for you, not on your salary, because most of your salaries cannot go take you to do the big things the ministers and the politicians go to do. They are looking to you to steal and come and share. I call it the vampire system, so that irrespective of your source of income, we must overcome that one. When I go home, normally I don't dash any of my family members' money, period. If you want to go to school, I will help you. If you want to do a business, I will lend you some money to do it. But you are not going to be my ward. This dependency syndrome must be changed. A third is sheer irresponsibility. And you see it not as irresponsibility, but as blamania. Blaming everyone. That's my own word, blamania. We Ghanaians love blaming people. Oh, because I come from a poor background, then I will receive some little bit of money and vote for the wrong person. Oh, because I didn't go to secondary school, I don't have the higher education, it's the fault of my mother and my parents. It's either my employer not paying me enough, and ultimately it is the fault of the government. Let me tell you, not that some people may not be blamable in your state, but at the end of the day, if you're an adult, you are responsible for your state. Even if you didn't go to school, here we have in a country whereby people are being paid 150 cedis to 200 cedis for just being construction hands. And yet people are sitting down, not working. I go to my village, we are looking for people to work because of either galamsey or for some reasons, laziness. You can't get somebody to hire as a laborer for 100 Ghana cedis plus a day. We are talking about 3,000 cedis. That is what a teacher is paid after 4 years of university education. A son, godson of mine says, work day, but people know day. You cannot continuously blame others. I'm not saying that others are not responsible for some of the conditions we live under, especially our governments. But at the end of the day, blamania will not help anybody. You will be irresponsible and you would suffer for it. Then there's a fourth thing which we think so much short term that I have a millionaires club, and my millionaires club is basically encouraging young people that if they save and invest in the right place, only 100 Ghana cedis a month, in 30 years they are millionaires. If they do 300, they are millionaires in 23. If they do 500, they are millionaires in 20. If they do 1,000, those who can afford, they are millionaires, city millionaires within 16 or 17 years. And that is basically based upon compound interest. And I'm using only 17.5%, not the 30% or so of the treasury bills. People must learn that they can create wealth, but unless you are somebody say that there are only 3 people who make money overnight: African politicians, thieves, and then there was a third one which has just escaped me. And neither of them should be a model if you want to create wealth for everybody, because we cannot create wealth by stealing from one another. Please, but it will require time. You don't become rich overnight being a thief or like many African politicians. Please, and we must think long-term and strategic. There's a 5th reason why many of us want to despise the productivity paradigm. It's high level of conviviality. Let me, I decided to use a big word so that you would remember. But just having high time. People actually work with the view of blowing everything, blessing my soul. Of course, let me say that I like blessing my soul, especially every now and then with a pizza and a Coke, which I don't do often because it's not good for an old man or anybody else. But you know, I see Ghanaians every time just spending whatever they have. No savings, no investment, not putting it in productive activities. So that every occasion is just to spend. Birth, weddings, funerals. Now funerals are so expensive. And all because funerals are just eating time. It's crazy. And when they say they are making a budget of 80 in Accra, 100, I hear about them. It is 90% just going to feed a crowd. Of course, that become a big business, so that it has probably an economic effect in the sense that there are cooks, there are food and other things. But the idea that we work just to spend and therefore don't save, don't look into the future, is one of the reasons why people really don't adopt the productivity paradigm. Then comes the 6th one, and that is a big one. It's a belief system, irrationalities, whereby people think that if they don't make it, it's because of witchcraft. If they make it, of course, it's not witchcraft. That one, they did it on their own. Sorcery. Then Sikadro, you think that, I don't know why my in-laws in Nzima, all the Nzimas are in-laws of Ashantis. People thought that when you go there, you get in Zimbabwe and then you become rich. But I said that my in-laws, then everybody will be rich. Yet when I go to them, they are all the same as other Ghanaians. There is nothing like Sikadro. It comes from the devil twisting our mind. Now, it is, of course, being promoted by governments. Gambling. Gambling is addictive and it destroys you. It has to do with the instant winning mentality, not wealth creation. And the worst part is the Sakawa and 419. Terrible evil that Africans, especially Nigerian brethren and some Ghanaians, have seen as their quickest way to wealth. Then comes corruption, whereby when people get a job, they don't look at it for their salary. Their aim is to use it as a means of aggrandizement, stealing. And the private sector people are the entrepreneurs are so worried. They have to find a watchman and then somebody to watch the watchman, and the watchman must be watched. I went to a factory I wouldn't like to mention to buy a product, and there were about 6 stages just to buy a phone. Why? Because of this thievery. This concept of Obia Dina Jumaho, that means when you get a job, is for you to actually steal from there, not earn an income. So therefore, people are not looking to produce and share in the productivity. Then there are pseudo-Christian teaching about prosperity gospel. If you tithe, then heaven will open to you. There is some truth in that, but I call them pseudo because, for example, when you tithe, God says he will bless the work of your hands. He didn't say that he will send manna from heaven. It ceased on the desert. Name it and claim it nonsense, spiritual nonsense. And some of them in the form of so-called prosperity gospel. Ghanaians also suffer from our socialist past. In fact, we were on our way to being communist when there was the coup in 1966. And people think that it's a communal thing and therefore we are entitled to share. Let me conclude by saying that there's also the downside of trade unionism, which in our case came from the communist area, whereby you see employers as exploiters and you undo them and you go on strike and the rest, because that's the way to improve your lot. Let me tell you, unless both employers and workers adopt the productivity paradigm and increase the cake, no matter what strikes the trade unions agenda, their members will be poor. It is when we have adopted productivity and produce nyafu nyafu, which requires both the employer and the workers, then you can think about sharing it. When the cake is small, everybody's share will be small. I think that we must overcome these tendencies. And as we come next week, hopefully, having overcome these negative tendencies, we can have a mindset which is dominated by producing goods and services at a rapid rate and improving everybody's lot. Shalom, and may the Lord be with you as we meet next week. I am your brother, Professor Emeritus Stephen Adei. Continue to listen to me on ZFM 101.9 and always meet me on YouTube. God bless you.